from Washington and other places, we've been watching the streets of Manhattan. There is certainly concern of how people might react. And I can tell you that at this moment, the initial reaction was calm, and now Manhattan has taken on a whole new sort of flavor. I want to take this camera because I can't see what you see. I'm going to take the camera and show you around a bit as well as I can. We're going to begin. We're on the top of a building at 47th Street and 7th Avenue, or 6th Avenue in Midtown Manhattan. This is 42nd Street. And you can see there was a lot of traffic in this street until a short time ago, but now you can see 42nd Street at the corner of Broadway has become a sort of sea of people. At this time of day, midday in Manhattan, this would normally be on a Tuesday afternoon, a very busy traffic area. It is not today. I'm going to pull out over here and take you, this is 47th Street, 47th Street panning now going up towards 7th Avenue. Now, this avenue is northbound, as you can see, and traffic is pretty well gridlocked there. There's very little of it, actually. And looking over toward the Hudson River, there's very little traffic across all of Manhattan. Now, we are looking right now over the Hudson River west in Manhattan, panning around now in the skyscrapers. This is where the World Trade Center stood, and down here is the TKTS building. This is another high traffic area in Midtown, an area with which most people who have ever visited New York would be quite familiar. This is the spot where you line up for Broadway tickets, and at this time of day, just after 12 o'clock, this would normally be a sea of literally thousands of people who are working their way around, getting their lunch and that sort of thing. You're looking live now in Times Square, a scene rarely repeated. Let's get back to this camera, because I'm going to pan down this street. When you're back on this camera, Bernie, let me know. And I'm going to pan down what is Broadway Avenue, making your way down. This would eventually take you all the way down to the financial district, panning across this building and back over to 42nd Street. I want to try to give you a look down the avenue toward what is the Diamond District. This is a little tricky, as you might imagine. This is the entrance to the Diamond District, right outside the Fox News studios. That would be the Diamond District, looking 47th Street now, all the way toward the East River. Absolutely no traffic in Manhattan today. Nothing. It initially started, cabs were running. I was able to get one about 9:30, 10 o'clock. Most of the cabs are no longer running, and the river crossings are now closed. All of Manhattan is shut down, and there is what was the World Trade Center. To say that there is chaos in the streets would be absolutely inaccurate. This is a city that prides itself on its ability to maintain amid the chaos, and that appears to be what's happening today. No violence in the streets, no problems to speak of, no incidents anywhere in Manhattan that I can tell you about. Certainly downtown would be a completely different story, but this city is not reacting in a violent way at all. There is calm here in Midtown, John, at least.
All right, Shepard Smith, thank you very much for that update. Of course, the World Trade Center, it sounds unbelievable to speak the words, but the World Trade Center is essentially gone, struck by two airplanes, apparently both of them hijacked. We are now getting a report, a confirmation from United Airlines that two of its planes are gone. One of them apparently the plane that crashed near Pittsburgh. But look here, this is the second plane that struck the World Trade Center shortly after 9 o'clock Eastern Time this morning. An earlier plane left the tower of smoke in the upper stories of the building on the right there. So both towers hit by planes. They burned for a while, and then one at a time they both collapsed. We have an onlooker who gave us what is sort of a horrific description of what it all looked like, sounded like, and felt like. Let's hear from that person now.
I saw the building falling down.
Say that again, I didn't hear you.
Saw people jumping from the building, from the 100th floor, and I saw the building just coming down.
It is absolutely an appalling day, not only here in Manhattan, but also in Washington, where the Pentagon also was apparently the subject of a strike by one of these hijacked airliners, flying bombs, really. The Pentagon, in these pictures taken earlier, but still very much on fire. The damage there perhaps not as severe as it is at the World Trade Center, but clearly America is under attack. I want to bring into the conversation a man who long planned for and never experienced this kind of event. Howard Safer, the former police commissioner and also fire commissioner, if I'm correct, of the city of New York. You got to be wondering about the guys who you once commanded both on the fire and police departments, who were no doubt trying to help people get out of those buildings when they came down around them.
Well, it's incomprehensible. We planned for all kinds of terrorist attacks, biological warfare, chemical warfare, but nobody envisioned two commercial airliners slamming into the World Trade Center. And I can tell you that although New York has the greatest emergency services in the world, they are being strained by the triage, by the number of injured, and by the requirements of this disaster.
I'm just guessing that most of those brave police and firefighters would have been clustered right around the base of those buildings, right? When we thought we had only a fire, clearly there would have been glass falling. We even had reports of people jumping out of the upper floors simply because they couldn't tolerate the smoke anymore. But a lot of your people would have been gathered at the base of those buildings when they came down.
Absolutely. Firefighters and police officers run into danger. They don't run away from it. And unfortunately, and I hope I'm wrong, there's probably going to be serious loss of life in both agencies as well as in the civilian area. I've been talking to some of the people at hospitals, and the hospitals are totally overwhelmed. They're triaging people they can help and making sure they don't spend time on people they can't.
I'm sure it's a speech that you never wanted to give, but what do you tell people? What do you tell America right now? How do we behave?
Well, my view is the way we behave is we assess who did this, we find out who they are, and then we make sure that we send a message that is clear, because terrorists only understand one thing. They understand force, they understand strength, and this is a time when we can't be weak. This is a time when we have to go and find out who did this and make them pay for it.
As for the reaction of the citizens of New York, the plea is out for people to donate blood. Is there anything else that New Yorkers can do right now?
Well, I think they can donate blood, but they really need to stay calm. They need to follow the instructions of the emergency service personnel. This is an incredibly difficult situation for police and firefighters. The National Guard will be coming in this evening, and this is something where citizens should pretty much, they don't have to be out, stay home.
Yeah, so stay off the streets if you possibly can. What about communications? We already know that phone lines in and out of New York are swamped. There are going to be thousands, millions of people perhaps across the country who may know somebody who worked in the World Trade Center. What do you tell them?
Well, this is still a rescue operation. There's still people who need help. There's still people who are alive in that wreckage who can be helped. And what people should do is, unless it's an emergency, don't use your telephone.
Let's go now to a man who experienced something like this. Frank Keating, the governor of Oklahoma, is joining us. Of course, he was in office at the time of what had been the worst terrorist attack America experienced, that of the domestic kind. Frank Keating, as you look at these pictures, what is going through your mind?
Well, this really is a day of agony and infamy for America.
Again, we have lost our connection with Frank Keating, a former FBI agent and the governor of Oklahoma. You got to understand, folks, that many of the communications lifelines in New York City ran through the World Trade Center. There were satellite dishes sprouting like mushrooms from the top of that building. There was a huge television tower, and all of that now is gone. Our Washington managing editor, Britt Hume, once again has the view from the nation's capital. Britt?
This gives us a sense of the state of official worry and knowledge here. Richard Shelby, the senator from Alabama, who is the leading Republican and now vice chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, has come out. One would presume if anybody would know a lot about what the U.S. officials know, he would. And he said all he knew about was the two plane attacks in New York, the one at the Pentagon, and he said that they had heard something had happened in western Pennsylvania. That, of course, consistent with the reports we've had about a Pittsburgh airport. So the sense we have is that many officials, many senior people here in Washington may know less than we do, at least officially, about what has happened here.
All right, Britt Hume, thanks.
John McCain is on Capitol Hill speaking, and we got an ear out for him as well.
All right, Britt, thanks very much. Newt Gingrich, the former Speaker of the House, was on the air with us not long ago and described this as the 21st century Pearl Harbor, and that does not overstate it. There may be as many as, on a typical day, there would be 50,000 people working in the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center, and those towers are gone. How many of those people were able to evacuate, we do not know. Once again, to Britt Hume in Washington. Britt?
John, we believe we've been joined now on the telephone by Republican Senator John McCain of Arizona. Senator,
Brett.
thank you very much. As a senior member of the U.S. Senate and a man deeply concerned with the U.S. military, what can you tell us beyond what we know about, first of all, about the attack at the Pentagon?
I can't tell you, Brett, anything that more than the information that you have, and I think that's probably the case with most members of Congress at this moment. I'm not in disagreement with others who said that this is an act of war, and there aren't words to describe adequately the enormity of these attacks and the depravity of those who would commit them. But I have no additional information, and I'm not sure that in the short term there will be a lot disclosed to members of Congress as they acquire it. But the fact is that this is an enormity that staggers the imagination.
Senator, you and others have described this as an act of war. What are the implications of seeing it in that light, rather than a mere lone or isolated act of terrorism? What are the policy implications? What kinds of steps are now possible or might be taken by this government in the light of viewing it as an act of war?
I think that means that the Congress acts to support the President of the United States in any actions that he needs to take to make sure that those who are responsible, whether they be governments or they be individuals or groups of individuals, that whatever measures need to be taken will be taken, and consider the United States now on the basis of a war, and go on to that footing and use whatever assets and efforts that are necessary to bring those to justice, and at the same time prevent ever a reoccurrence of a tragedy and a crime of this enormity.
Senator, we've been seeing just for the last couple of minutes some live pictures of injured people arriving at a hospital in New York for treatment there. Obviously, it would appear, based on what we know, that the loss of life is going to be very great indeed. Your sense from knowing the Pentagon and knowing the area where that airplane hit, fire still going over there. Do you have any? What can you tell us about that part of the building? Number of people work there, that kind of thing.
Well, as you know, the Pentagon is a very large building, and which may work to our benefit here, as opposed to the trade towers. I can't make an estimate, but fortunately, the Pentagon is a very large building, so let's pray that the extent of the casualties has been limited by that. Obviously, there's casualties, but what staggers the imagination, as I heard you talking, is the 50,000 people that work at the trade towers. We pray for them and their families, and it's a tragedy that, again, words become inadequate very quickly when describing something of this nature. But I'm sure the President will lead us. I am sure that the President will reassure the American people, and all of us, all Americans, will commit ourselves to making sure that those who committed it pay the heaviest price, whether they be governments or individuals, including governments that may have harbored groups that were responsible for this, and we will make sure that there's never a reoccurrence. And I know that's no consolation to the grieving families, but I don't think we can do more, except I am confident the President of the United States will lead, and the American people can bestow their confidence upon his leadership.
Senator, what you're saying suggests, as others may have mentioned, that life in the United States will not again be the same anytime soon. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree with that, and again, it's incomprehensible and reprehensible, and none of us that I know of ever imagined something this enormity, and well orchestrated, obviously.
Senator, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thanks, Brett.
We now have Brian Wilson, I believe, able to report to us on what he's been hearing. He's up on Capitol Hill. Brian, what are you hearing, buddy?
Well, I'm hearing a lot of things, Britt. One of the things that we're hearing in the last few minutes is from Senator Richard Shelby, who is a member